Hi, I'm Alex Haber, and I'm a writer from Michigan. My book, The Lighthouse Keeper, just came out on Gnashing Teeth Press. I want to give a big shout out to Karen and the rest of the team over at Gnashing Teeth. They've been so kind and so supportive of this book. It's a collection of short stories, most of them very short stories. And before I talk more about the book, I think I'm going to get started by just reading you the first story in the collection, which is called Homeless. It was the way her body felt on the sand, she said. It didn't feel nice. If they maybe had a blanket or something to set down. But the young man had gone off without responding, leaving her alone on a shadowed stretch of beach in late autumn. Beyond the rocks, the sun stood over the lake, casting its bright orange glare along the surface. A cold wind rose and gave the young woman goosebumps. She reached for her shirt. They'd had such a nice time on the water that afternoon, swimming despite the season and searching for crayfish and bits of shell along the shore. She hated for things to be like this, the way these things seemed to matter more than anything else. A pair of lake birds circled overhead. She dressed and walked uphill to where the young man had wandered. At first she couldn't spot him anywhere. The grass beyond the beach was tall and scraped her feet. She paused to put on her shoes, and she thought of calling the young man's name, but decided against it. He would be fine. The trail climbed up from the beach, branching out into a series of thin, leafless trees and a distant cliff. Eventually she found him. He was bending in front of an oak tree on the horizon. She had to squint to see exactly what was happening. An old man, maybe homeless, sat slouched against the tree. He was the only other person they'd seen at the beach all day, and she could just make out his features in the changing light. He seemed to be unconscious. She watched from a distance as the young man reached toward the old man. When he rose again, he carried a long green bottle that reflected the sun. "What are you doing?" she asked, catching up. He drank from the bottle, arching his back in a proud way, and handed it to her. "You won't miss it," he said. "Is he passed out? Drunk?" He drank long and thirsty from the bottle, wiping his lips, and offered it again, but she wouldn't accept it. "You drove us here," she said. "Yeah, I'll drive us back." "No," she said. She walked away from the man against the tree, not toward the car or the beach, but across the hill, the tall, sharp grass. Her hair blew in the wind, and she tried to hold it down. She didn't hear the young man's footsteps behind her. He was probably still drinking. Fine. It was freezing, and she didn't want to walk. It was all so difficult. Eventually she heard him catching up. "What, you're not thirsty?" he said. She didn't answer. They walked single file down the field, not talking, until they reached the cliff overlooking the lake. A cold breeze rippled the vast orange water. "I don't know why you have to act this way," she said. "You know I want it the same as you." The young man kept on drinking. He stood on the edge of the cliff, his back to the young woman. "But you won't talk. You never talk. You storm off and act crazy. You steal and you drink, and you say you want to drive us home. Can't we just have a nice time for a change and leave it at that?" "How can you say that?" he said, turning around. "That you want it too." "I do," she said. He laughed. "Not here, on the ground, without privacy. There's no one around." "What about the old man at the tree?" she said. From the top of the cliff they could still make him out, a short brownish growth beside the tree trunk. The young man moved toward the young woman, and she pushed him away. "Not here and not anywhere," he said. "I've given you all the time in the world. I took you to the beach in October." "You're selfish." He approached her again, wetting his lips, and she reached into his pocket and took his keys. "Give them back," he said. She ran toward the parking lot. She could hear him behind her, not close, but taking his time. She got in and locked the door. When the young man arrived, he started banging on the glass. She turned on the ignition, but she couldn't drive away. Instead, she buried her face in the steering wheel and waited for him to stop. He would stop at some point, he always did. He would calm down and get over it, and she would drive them back home to town and park his father's car at his parents' house and walk the half mile down the road in the cold. And the next day he would call her at home and he would come over and maybe he would apologize. It wasn't unthinkable. Or maybe after all this, she would just give in and let him have it in her room and she would bite her tongue and just be done with it. It wouldn't kill her. She listened to the bottle smash and shatter on the concrete. The sun went down and the sky filled with stars. Out here at the beach, the stars came early. The young man settled and the girl let him in. She turned on the car's headlights and checked the mirrors. Driving away, she saw the small shrinking image of the old man behind her. He had risen from his tree and was standing hunched over the field, wildly searching through the tall grass all around him. So that was the first story I wrote for the book, maybe about 10 years ago. A lot of these stories were written, or a version of them was written some years back. They've evolved like I think all writing does if you let it. But I wrote these stories largely in my 20s and came back and edited them in my 30s. Um, it's something that's been said before, but I think part of what's so interesting about artwork is the way that it means different things to you at different points in your life. The artwork itself doesn't change, it's always still in time, but we age and the culture and the world shifts around to us and around the artwork. Um, I really like that first story. I know some writers have talked about some of their favorite stories being the least famous or maybe the least particularly critiqued ones. This story wasn't the first one in the collection to find a home in a literary journal. Um, but I've always loved it, and it provided a structure, I think, and an orbit that shaped all those other stories that would come for this collection. It kind of created the atmosphere that the other stories would come to exist in. I've always loved and written short stories. I'm really a fan of brevity, the idea of not wasting space and of every word having intention and providing only what's really necessary to create a scene or a tone or a point of view. Um, I don't really like the term flash fiction so much because it can feel, I think, like a sport, and a story doesn't need to have a particular word count. But giving yourself word limits can be, I think, like any other kind of restriction. It can help you lead to some new realizations. And these stories, I think, in The Lighthouse Keeper aren't short because I had a goal of writing short stories, but they're short because that's what they are. They're full stories with plotting and with stakes and with lyricism, and they capture brief moments in time that carry a lot of weight. And so I'm going to read another short story here, and this one is called Sister Holly. At the far end of our street, there is a cul-de-sac, a dead end of houses removed from the proper neighborhood. We gather in the woods behind the cul-de-sac in a clubhouse built at the top of a tree, titled with an old bar sign that one of us had stolen from the rubble of a nearby fire, the Rusty Nail. From our clubhouse, we can see into the homes of the cul-de-sac. A pair of old hags own two of the properties, the ancient Agmon sisters whose run-down houses faced each other across the street. Other than to investigate the strange whirring noises that come from their bedrooms at night, we've had no reasons to study them. The third house, painted pale yellow so that it stands out from the plain white others, and with large, uncurtained windows, belongs to Sister Holly. Sister Holly is the youngest nun we've ever seen, all of us students at the local Catholic boys' high school. She must be just a few years older than us, and she doesn't teach as far as we know. Each day she leaves her house in full uniform, heading to an unknown place. Some convent in the city, we imagine, or some other queer religious institute. Our parents call her Sister Holly, the italics a tone in their voices, when referencing her. Poor Lottie Miller, says my mother to my aunt one evening at the kitchen table. Across the room, my father sits in his usual chair, whittling a piece of wood into some sort of knick-knack. That daughter of hers is going to end up in the family way. A disciple of Sister Holly, says my aunt. Our street is full of these sayings, innuendos, though we've never seen anyone at the pale yellow house but its owner. In the clubhouse, we share our findings, trying to understand the young nun. Miss Marsh said she's had an abortion, says one of us. Who's Miss Marsh? She works at the clinic. I've never been to any clinic. She got expelled from the convent. That's why she can't teach here in town. I'd confess my sins to Sister Holly any day. We swap binoculars in the evening, watching Sister Holly's routines on the top floor of her house. Her hair falls down to her shoulders, dark and slick from the shower. She wears a towel, or else a pair of underwear. She lies on her bed with a book, her feet in the air. We encourage her to go further. Roll over, we chant. We become obsessed with the word abortion. She's the first and best woman any of us have ever seen, a curse printed in the Bible by mistake. One day we're sitting in the Rusty Nail and one of us dares another to sneak into the pale yellow house in the cul-de-sac. Of course, we've all thought it before. Sister Holly has a hold on us. The girls on our street who attend our sister high school, they distract us during the day, but Sister Holly keeps us up at night. Those with girlfriends choose the sway of Sister Holly's legs and prefer her discolored white bras to the lacy black show bras of their girlfriends. The grotesque faces of the nuns at school only elevate our affection. What would be the point, the dear boy asks. She'll freak out and call the cops. She'll close her windows up for good. Then go in when she's out in the city, or wherever she goes all day. What would even be the point? The mission, of course, is obvious. Bring us back a souvenir. But the nervous boy backs down. It's not worth it. It'll ruin everything. It's not going to ruin nothing. That's when I hear myself volunteer. The boys have been joking around, all of us packed into this clubhouse, sweating and bored in the late spring sun. They turn to see me, a slight thin boy in the corner of the fort, to figure me out. It's not often I have their attention. I'm serious, I say. I take the binoculars and look inside the familiar window, and you can watch from up here. The boys look around the clubhouse. Well, what are you waiting for? Tomorrow, I tell them, after school. We all know Sister Holly will be home at any minute. At sundown, we leave the clubhouse and go home for dinner. I change my clothes to hide the cigarette smoke, which hangs like a fog around our tree. As we eat, my mother talks about her job at the Sunday school, and my father grunts at the appropriate pauses. I drink 2 glasses of milk and sit beside him after dinner as he whittles what appears to be a small Bosa rabbit. In bed, I can't sleep. My nerves are electric. I replay the afternoon in my head, the wide, uncertain eyes of the boys, then picture again the pale yellow house. It has 2 stories, like ours, though the houses on our street are larger and constantly under construction. Basements added, swimming pools dug, so the houses in the cul-de-sac always appeared old, from another time. I wonder about the inside of her house, the mysterious layout of the rooms. I close my eyes and take a deep breath. I try to see the decor of the hallways, modest and beige, crucifixes, probably lots of them, hanging at a tilt. I imagine the smell of her bathroom and her soap and the feel of her carpet on the soles of my feet, and I think of her underwear, and then I'm really going. The next day I get to school early. I worry about the other boys, if they've taken me seriously, but they tease me in a brotherly way, and they raise their hands in class, deflecting the inquiries of the nuns. The nuns act sort of suspicious, slanting their eyes, but they carry on as usual. It amazes me that the girl in the cul-de-sac could be one of them, could have anything to do with these old, bitter women. In the back of the classrooms, I bite my lips and watch the clocks, wanting this day to go on forever. Soon the final bell rings, and on the way to the Rusty Nail, the boys talk. She's a nympho, says one boy. You're lucky. In his dreams, they laugh. One small boy, not usually one of us, has come along to the clubhouse today. Somebody's cousin. I wouldn't do it if I were you, says the cousin. Well, you're not him, I'm defended. I haven't had to speak all day. They pass around the binoculars, and I can't see her dresser, but it has to be nearby, in the corner of the bedroom against the far wall, beside the window. We establish an emergency signal, in case Sister Holly returns ahead of schedule. The boys will fire a bright orange flare gun that one of them had stolen from his father's safe box. As an extra precaution, we check the soundless homes of the Agmont sisters. Nothing to report. I get punched and patted and have fingers run through my hair. I'm assured the binoculars will track my every move until I get there, inside the house, and will wait for me at the bedroom window. I wish good luck and warn not to chicken out. And then I'm off. I'm climbing down the clubhouse. My stomach turns as they chant my name and I cross the woods in a cul-de-sac, calculating my footsteps, careful not to trip. The sun feels so hot on my neck and shoulders. I'm carrying the heavy weight of their eyes. At the front end, at the front end of the house, I check the curve of the street. There's no one to catch me or mistake me for a burglar before taking the key from the potted plant beside the door. Everything is right. The lock of the pale yellow house submits, and I shut the door and the rest of the world behind me. Finally, I exhale. The first thing I notice in the foyer is the smell, an earthy scent like flowers steeping or an old newspaper gone yellow. It was a woman's scent, I imagine, though my mother has never smelled like that. In the dark of the hallway, I survey my surroundings, eager to report my findings. A small bronze mirror hangs beside the doorway, square and kind of smudged, and a pair of shiny black church shoes waits patiently beside an empty umbrella bin. I pick up the shoes and examine their insides, worn and stiff, larger than I expected. I sniff them on a whim, and on a table nearby, a single frame photo of an unknown dog greets the entrance. Whose dog is that, I wonder, looking around the house, hearing nothing. A smiling beast with a branch between its jaws. Strange as it is, I don't see any religious memorabilia. No crucifix on the wall, no cozy embroidered prayers like at my house. If hers is anything like mine, I think, I'll find the stairs in the next room over, beside the den. But instead I'm somehow in the kitchen. Looking around, I picture the young nun, for the first time, eating. Can you sit down, please? Or leave? Strange as it is, I don't see any religious memorabilia. No crucifix on the wall. No cozy embroidered prayers like at my house. If hers is anything like ours, I think, I'll find the stairs in the next room over, beside the den. But instead I'm somehow in the kitchen. Looking around, I picture the young nun, for the first time, I guess, eating. Thin crisps and celery sticks, her teeth lightly crunching. The room seems well ordered, except for the sink, in which a tower of dirty dishes leans out over the counter. I wonder if the nun has recently cooked for someone, or if she's just a slob, though both seem kind of hard to imagine. A tea kettle sits on the stove, probably left over from breakfast. I want to investigate her refrigerator, but decide against it when I come across the stairs. I move slowly upward, but each step, with a creak, alerts the house of my presence. I know I'm alone, but the sound makes my heart race. The walls of the stairwell are bare, but I take my time in the darkness, lingering outside the bedroom, preparing to be rejoined with the boys. With a deep breath, I turn the knob and enter the bedroom. I recognize it right away. It feels like someplace fictional come to life. It also seems smaller in person. Immediately, I go to the window and search for the rusty nail, but to my surprise, I can't see the tree or a clubhouse from this angle. I'm somehow blocked by branches. I squint and wave to the invisible others, putting on a show, knowing that somewhere out there they're fighting for those binoculars. I remember the way they treated me at school and lay down on the bed in my sneakers, rolling into Sister Holly's usual position, basking in their excitement like a cat in the sun. I return to the window and bid them farewell. Now I'm feeling better. The dresser awaits across the room. I saunter over and rifle through the drawers. I'm expecting to find a neat supply of nun's clothing, rows of squarely folded black and white outfits, but instead I find sweatshirts, and in the next drawer down, some slacks and old jeans. The final drawer contains the treasure. Chewing my tongue, I inspect it all. The textures and discolorations, the minor holes and stains. I finger the cotton fabrics, pinching them between my fingers. I hold them up to my face. No one can see me here alone in this bedroom. Without discrimination, I shove a pair of each kind in my pockets, wadding them up into tight little balls. On impulse, I also grab a pair of stockings and a second pair of underwear. These I shove into the waist of my pants for safekeeping. With my mission complete, I make a reappearance in the window, holding up my souvenirs like flags. Between the branches, I think I can see the orange reflection of the flare gun waved in celebration. I wonder what the group will do with these findings, or if Sister Holly will even notice them gone. Because I want to make the experience last, I decide to use the bathroom before I go. The pressure of the heist is sunken into my stomach, I guess, and in a stroke of excited genius, I think of using the bathroom and not flushing. A calling card to leave behind, like the criminals on TV. I cross the room and click on the light of the master bathroom, and then I freeze in place. Sister Holly swings a large white iron, steaming hot and plugged into the nearby outlet. She has on her nun's uniform, squatting barefoot on the tile beside the toilet. Get back, she warns. I want to run or scream, but I only just stand there and stare in her direction. She holds the iron out, short and trembling, and I don't know what to do. I've never seen her up close before. None of us have. And I look into her wide, brown eyes. She looks somehow even younger in person. Her face is small, and on her left cheek there's a scar in the shape of a triangle. She stares back at me. She can't seem to understand why I haven't moved. She's whispering something again and again in stunted breaths, and I realize at this moment that I've never heard her voice before. What do you want? She asks. Why won't you leave? She tilts her head, looking down at my waist, at the stains I've yet to even notice, and slowly she stands upright. Whatever you want, she says, speaking quietly, still holding her weapon. Just hurry. The room smells like fire, and I want her to take a swing at me, to make a move, but instead the curling iron lowers to her side. She's looking me in the eye. And that's when I finally run. I race down the stairs and out of the cul-de-sac, and I don't go back to the clubhouse, but back home, to my bedroom. I lock the door and rip off my jeans, still hot and wet, and the damp underwear and stockings fall out limply on the floor. When I hear the pounds of the boy's hyper fist on my bedroom door, I kneel down beside my bed, and I'm naked from the waist down and crying. So now that we've read a couple of stories, let's talk a little about the theming in the book and what these stories are about to me. So in my mind, as the collection was coming together, the stories were often glimpses of relationships at demarcation points. Um, they're brief interactions that say a lot about the larger relationships around them. The couple in Homeless, and particularly the young woman protagonist, are faced with a very literal demarcation point about taking the relationship to the next level. Sister Holly, I think, is also about a demarcation point, but in a different kind of way. It's about a young man who discovers his capacity for wrongdoing in real time, and the moment that his perception of the world and of himself forever shifts. It's about masculinity and the realization that boys have, I think, or should have, about the power they hold. We all have power. And I'm calling out boys specifically here because obviously the system is built in our favor. And the narrator is so focused on fitting in at the clubhouse that he doesn't really even see Sister Holly as a human being or his own actions as having consequences until he's confronted. And I think he's humbled by his own power, and at the end of the story, he's scared of what happened, and maybe he's a little scared of himself for what he is capable of. This final story I'm going to read is called Tick. That summer, the sun was a crankshaft, turning loudly, getting hotter all the time. We ate sandwiches by the river. Never mind that hobos don't eat sandwiches. We took turns staring up at the sun, trying to see who could last the longest. What the hell is that? Said Mikey. There was something on my leg. It was moving back and forth. At first I thought it was some kind of sun hallucination. It's a big one, said Mikey. What the hell is it? It's a tick. It looks like it's trying to get inside me. It is. You better get it out. If you don't, you're going to get diseased. I started clawing. Not like that, he laughed. He was on his hands and knees now, inspecting the tick up close. If you hit it too hard, you'll break its head off. It'll get stuck inside your leg and keep eating. Well, what do I do? You gotta pinch your skin like this. He did it on his belly, bare and lean. Use your nails to really work the blood out. You gotta drown the suckers, really blast it. Its tiny legs were cycling. Blood was dripping a little down my leg, and I tried to wipe it off. But when I did, I guess I brushed too hard and the body ripped clean off, just like Mikey had said. Its head was still in there, a little speck. Shit, I said. You blew it. What do I do now? Nothing you can do. But don't worry, it'll be dead before long. Mikey lay on the grass, stretched out and sunny. The sun was still grinding. It sounded like a room of machines pumping and jacking. I got up and washed in the river. I could see the minuscule head still there inside my skin, like a little bud of hair. I squeezed and pinched at my leg until it was raw, but the thing wouldn't budge. I said you shouldn't flick it, said Mikey. Well, how the hell do you know so much about it? I've had plenty of ticks. I'd never seen Mikey with a tick before. He was full of crazy stories, never mind that he lived here all his life. Did you get diseased? Hell no, I got them out. Am I gonna get sick? Mikey shrugged. My brother got one stuck once. He was fine after a while, but still there to this day. It's on the bottom of his foot. We lay there by the river in the sun. There weren't any clouds out, just the sun, hot and still grinding. And I rubbed my leg again. It started to hurt. You should name it, said Mikey. I laughed. I'll call him Mikey. What about Lou? That sounds more like a hobo's name. Okay. It stayed in my leg all summer, below the skin. It was the three of us there, me and Mikey and Lou. The sun kept churning, producing more heat. Sometimes I wonder if it's still in there, under all the hairs. Maybe over time it absorbed into my body and now I'm part man, part tick. More likely, I guess, it got eaten by bacteria, flushed out. I don't know, I'm not a scientist. So that one's a short one, and it's one of a few in the book that revolve around the same characters. In this case, it's a couple of boys who live down near a muddy river in the country. And there's a few stories in the book that really center around these young boy characters. And similarly, the titular Lighthouse Keeper and his family appear in two different stories in the book. I think the recurring characters help to give the book a sense of familiarity and of small town connections. The stories about the Tick Boys take place over the same summer, a pivotal adolescent summer, though we only see the boys in little snapshots throughout the season. They spend their time whittling down the days, their boredom shaken only occasionally by, I think, striking scenes of violence and sexuality that leave the narrator feeling unsure. So I don't know, maybe I'll write more about these two young boys someday down at the river. There might be something there, a larger piece about boyhood and summertime and the muddy river and the mudfish. But again, I really want to thank Gnashing Teeth Press for all of their support and help in bringing this book to life. Again, I'm Alex Haber. The book is called The Lighthouse Keeper, and thank you so much.